Step forward. A song created by Preston Logan, performed tonight, will save reality as we know it.
Hello and welcome to another edition of Film Seizure at the movies / streams the movies, whatever we're going to call this going forward. I am Geoff Arbuckle.
I'm Chuck Moore.
And we've got ourselves a nice little movie to talk about for this. And that's Bill and Ted Face the Music. And we'll get into that here in just a moment. But just for some housekeeping stuffs, you can always go over to filmseizure.com. Wednesdays, you can find those new episodes of the regular Film Seizure series.
Yes.
Starting this week is Super September.
Ooh.
Yeah, I know,
That's
right?
exciting. Yeah.
I know, right? It's going to be super, I think.
It is very super.
Very, very super. We've got, and of course on Mondays, you got Monster Mondays with various other things that get sprinkled in here and there, like 00 Saturdays, whenever there is something interesting to talk about that's new with more likely going to be those kind of Film Seizure streams the movies for a little while, and I sure hope that becomes even more possible. But let's talk about Bill and Ted. Yeah. So, Chuck, tell everybody your connection to Bill and Ted, because if I'm going to venture a guess, I think out of the three regular bros here at Film Seizure, you, myself, Jason Oliver, I got the impression that maybe you were the most excited about Bill and Ted Face the Music.
Yeah, I am. I have a lot of nostalgia for this series, like a lot of nostalgia for this series. Bill and Ted were a big connection for my friends and I growing up. We would watch, I think I even owned both of them on video at some point. And both of them are the kind of movie that you can just throw on and watch, throw on and have a pizza, throw on and talk. You know, you don't have to be super engaged with these films. There are moments in each that are like laugh out loud, hysterical.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I just like the idea of two surfer dudes that don't surf, that
they're potheads who don't smoke pot.
Yeah, they're potheads that don't smoke pot. I mean, they're just clean fun. You don't have to think too hard about them. You just get in there and watch them.
You brought up something that I definitely am going to touch upon later as we talk about the new movie, and that's the clean part of it.
Right.
And yeah, I mean, I always liked, Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, but I didn't see it in the movie theater. I had rented it, I think. I was, I don't know. I was a little resistant to want to like Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure just because,
right.
I mean, for one, it's like, I thought I watched, cultured movies like.
Oh, you're a bit highbrow.
Well, yeah, right. Yeah, right. Yeah. But no, but it's like, I think the big thing was that, it's like, I was pretty entrenched in the whole Doctor Who fandom, and it's like, they're using the telephone, but it's like, don't anybody know that's somebody else's shtick, or
right. Right. Well, as it turns out, and something I learned recently, and I think maybe you did too, they were going to use vehicle.
Yeah.
Initially, and Back to the Future kind of put a.
Yeah, they beat him to the punch on that.
Yeah.
Yeah. But no, after seeing the movie, like I had heard, some friends say it's like, oh, it's pretty funny. It's pretty funny. I didn't really express my opinion about it or anything, but then I saw it and I'm like, yeah, this is pretty funny. It's like, it's just a funny kind of comedy, no pun intended, vehicle.
Right.
With two guys who are just very, very likable. Now, when the second movie came out, I did go see it in the theater. That came out, I think, the summer of '91.
I definitely saw Bogus Journey in the theater. I cannot remember for sure if I saw Excellent Adventure in the theater. But
yeah, I definitely know I didn't go see it in the theater, but I did rent it. And, I was already a George Carlin fan far, far too young.
Right.
But so it's like, well, he's in it, so it's got to be kind of awesome, you know.
Yeah.
But to say that I actually have nostalgia for this is kind of, I was thinking about this all day today, to be honest with you, actually all day yesterday too, because I was like trying to like organize my thoughts for this movie and for this review. And, I'm a very sentimental person, but I'm not, I say that I'm actually relatively good at trying to avoid too much overhyped nostalgia. And
Right.
I don't, and I want to make sure I say it like that, because I'm always really, really concerned about nostalgia grabs, because that's very, very, very popular over the last 10 years or so.
Right. You have 90s bands touring all over the place. Like there really is. We turned 40 trying to cash in on our 80s youth.
Exactly. Like there's a revisit of the 90s in music. There's a lot of movies that use 80s like pop hits as their
Right.
soundtrack. There's a lot of rebooting and remaking of things that have already been rebooted and remade at some point. I will say that there's always room to complain that Hollywood is kind of just cranking out product, not really working too hard on understanding why people like a thing.
So let me, if you don't mind, let me say a couple things here.
Yeah.
When I first heard they were making a new Bill and Ted, I was like, I don't know if I really need that.
Exactly.
I like the way that the second one ended. I feel like the humor was good for the time, and it would be hard to make relevant again. And yeah, I just didn't feel the need for it. And then I saw the trailer, and I think I immediately told you and Jason, like, oh no, oh, no, this is not what I want. And I am, I got mad when they made the Ninja Turtles all have, their colored sashes over their eyes. Like, I don't usually like things that are reimagined parts of my youth. I'm not like a get off my lawn guy about it, but I usually would stay away from it. And last point here, if we were not in the middle of a global pandemic, I may not have even gravitated toward this at all. If there were other things for me to be doing, Yeah,
that actually brings up another good point, because, it's like I approach these things from my youth in a couple of different ways. One is like, for example, say Star Wars or Star Trek, where the best Star Wars and Star Trek have already been made. And I can approach the new stuff with an open mind, but if I don't like something, I can express my opinion and move on and just go back to the stuff I do like, and then let my imagination fulfill my own desire for what I want to see next. I don't need anybody to do that for me. But at the same time, then there's stuff like there's been a big new push as far as like things with like Transformers, because Netflix has a new show, and they are specifically going back to what they know worked, which was the 80s aesthetic, which I think is, one, it's fine for me because I can kind of get in on some of the collecting of it.
Right.
But at the same time, it's like, these are so much better toys than what we had when we were growing up.
Right.
It's like some of those toys, the nostalgia or the sentimentality of the box art, the actual thing, growing up with that stuff is really better than the reality.
Right.
And it's something to be careful about. And because there are whole departments of people out there who are going to package something, box it, and ship it out with the expressed intent that it's going to tickle your nostalgia bone,
Right.
and then people go see it, and then you get the reactionaries, right? Like, and it's just like, dude, you're wasting a lot of time complaining about that. You can just go back and watch the thing.
Just go watch the original, man.
Right.
Go ahead.
No, and I was just going to say, it's like, so when I was approaching the Bill and Ted thing, the first thing I really wanted to do, and we'll get into this after you say what you said, but I wanted to watch all three of them, like, as close together as I possibly can.
Right.
And the only reason why I can say that is that while I always liked the other two, it had been probably 20 years since I've seen the second one.
It's been a while for me as well.
Yeah. And it's like, because it's just one of those things where it's like, it's so simplistic and it's so memorable, those first two movies, that it's like, oh yeah, I know exactly that scene came from this movie and it's referencing this thing. And it's, it's like, this is not something that, as rewatchable as those two movies are, is not something I've revisited much in my adulthood.
Right. And you do need to let them sit a little while, because there are no surprises. You know all the jokes. So in order to laugh at them, you need some space.
Exactly.
You need some time between them. Because I did also watch both movies here in the last month. I wanted to watch them closer to the release, but it's really not all that necessary. And going into this one, there were places I thought that they still didn't investigate in the first two that they could. And it turns out they actually do utilize the stuff that they didn't really do in the first two, which is nice.
Yeah, there's I know, unfortunately Jason couldn't make it to this discussion, and I know he had, I don't want to say disappointment, but I think he was maybe hoping for a little bit more out of this.
Right.
I, on the other hand, have, the more I've thought about it, the more I'm kind of living with having seen it, the more I like this movie.
Yeah, it's actually, it did something good. It did something good, and it did something I didn't expect it to be able to do, which is to kind of simulate the heart of the first two films.
Exactly. And I'm glad you actually used that word, because this movie's got a ton of heart.
Yes.
And the best way that I can really kind of talk about this movie is to, I think, fairly compare it not to the first two movies, because that would be a little unfair, but compare it to other types of movies like this that I wish were still being made.
Right.
Because the first two movies, like, what really, really works about those two movies is that you have these two guys who, while, yes, they do use some colloquial language that would not be, would immediately turn people off of them today.
Right.
But, by using a particular slur whenever they would get a little too emotional with one another.
Which is really unfortunate, because that was a word of the time. And
exactly.
It never should have been, but we can't apologize for that.
We can't.
80s and 90s at this point.
No, we really can't. And what you need to see from those characters are that they are still, like, really good dudes. Like, there's not a mean bone in any of these movies' bodies.
No.
And it's just a couple of guys who just want to, like, rock out and have a good time and want everybody else to have a good time with them. And that carries forward to this new movie, even though they're slower, they're tired, they're older, they're crushed by the weight of the fact that while we thought the end of the second movie was the launching point of what was supposed to be what the future world was built on,
which I was okay with.
I was okay if we end it that way. I'm okay with. If we do it this way,
I'm okay with that too.
I turned out to be pretty okay with that.
Yeah.
Because they are two guys who are just keep trying, and that's kind of admirable.
Yeah, I mean, it took 25 years for one of them to express any real doubt
Yes.
Like I think it's 20 years, 25 years, whatever, but it's
Well,
been
they
a
said
long time.
25 years, and I'll talk about that here in just a minute too. But go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, they just were going to keep going. I won't ruin that first scene, which is pretty great.
Oh my God, that
air,
first scene kills me.
Yeah, the areas that they are going to try to find the song are just brilliant. Hilarious.
Well, the things that I will say about the first scene is that we bring back all of these characters from the first movie, like Ted's brother Deacon.
Yep.
Who is now marrying Missy, who was both of their stepmoms at one point.
Yep.
And
you have kind of a Spaceballs discussion.
Oh my God. Like they keep and they're happy as can be about all of it. It's like, who cares? Whatever, it's like, but they go through their entire history with this character. And it's so funny to me because it's like, it's the attention to that detail of those first two movies and caring enough not to just, oh, hey, Missy's here. No, it's like they're taking it one step further.
Yeah.
And it's just, it's so funny. But, there is still that, and then they go, and then they take their wives to couples therapy. And that scene, yes, and that scene kills me because they cannot be separated. Like they are one brain,
right?
And it's like the doctor's trying to get like, it starts with Ted. It's like, well, tell your wife. I can never remember which wife was which, but
I can't either.
So tell your wife, Ted, that you love her. Say I love you, and he says I, and by I mean we.
Yeah, he says I and Bill love you, and
and then Bill is like, oh, wait a minute, Ted, you're doing it wrong. And then he turns and does the exact same thing but worded differently, and it's
right.
So like those little moments in this movie are so funny. And it's so earnest, and it cares so much to get these characters right. And then you've got the two guys, Alex Winter and Keanu Reeves, who it feels like that they've made like a dozen movies in this series in between.
Right.
The last
like
30
they've
years.
Always been these characters.
Yeah, and it's like they just kind of slide right back into it, and they just sound a little older.
Yep.
And it's just it's just really nice, and I think that's the right word to describe this movie. It's nice.
Yeah.
It does not there's at no point do they inappropriately yell at somebody, or like they are reacting appropriately to the situation, but while still ultimately, bottom line, doing something good for everybody.
Yeah, and if you've seen the trailers for this, you'll know what I'm talking about here, and I won't spell it out explicitly, but the only anger that Bill and Ted even have in this movie is with themselves.
Yes.
For choices that they've made, and it leads to some kind of funny scenes with the interactions with themselves.
Yes. Right. So yeah, they are purely frustrated at themselves because they feel like they have failed.
Right.
And at the same time, they're frustrated because all they want is to find the future version of themselves that have written the song that saved the world, so they can just ask them for it.
Right. It's amazing. And that's the portion of what they explore here that they didn't in the previous two films was the future.
Yeah.
What does the future hold? They kind of were in the future in the first two.
Yeah.
Definitely in the first one, but not for any length. This movie is largely built on the future. Exactly.
Like it's the one, and they still, I mean, it is the one place they hadn't gone, and they still revisit some ideas that worked in the first two movies. Like,
absolutely.
It's like, they go back to hell, and, they got to go find death. But at the same time, it's like, they've got to also go and save their daughters and their friends and stuff like that. So it's like, it's it's just and what I really wanted to say is that, you know, this reminded me of movies that used to be made in the 80s and 90s that were in no way, shape, or form pretentious, in no way, shape, or form trying to be more than what it really was. It's just a nice little fun, entertaining movie that you can't really say anything all that negative about.
No, it's like one of those early Beatles pop songs that's just about love, man.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
it sounds good. It might be basic at points, but the message is awesome, and it's fun to listen to / watch. You know,
Exactly. And it reminded, you know, what it really reminded me of was movies like Tommy Boy, where it's
right,
like, this is just a fun ass movie to watch.
right.
And it's not something that has maybe the rewatchability as the first two Bill and Ted movies, or as I compared it to Tommy Boy. But it's certainly one that it's like, yeah, you know what? I kind of feel like just having this on in the background, because there is something, and to compare it to yet another movie, a movie I think it does what it set out to do way better than the other movie. When I saw Jay and Silent Bob Reboot,
Yeah,
you can see how old those characters are, and it feels weird. Like, I don't want to see them anymore.
right.
They're stuck in the past. They're stuck in this kind of way that just doesn't really work anymore for these characters.
No,
And while there are some things that are kind of nice about the message, it doesn't really work.
right.
This movie is doing almost the exact same thing, where you're watching aging characters caring about, like, also, like, you know, trying to be there for their daughters, for their family and stuff like that.
Whom I liked for the most part. I thought the girls, Samara and I forget her name, did really well. Especially, actually, Ted's daughter was.
Yeah, Billy. Yeah,
Yeah.
so Bridget Lundy Payne I think is really good in this, because
Yeah.
actually they is a non-binary person who is done all sorts of stuff, like music, fashion, art, you know, like all sorts of stuff. But Billy like literally comes off like a younger Keanu Reeves.
Yeah, 100%.
Like, just without a doubt, you can tell, like, yeah, Billy's, you know, Ted's daughter.
Yep.
And I like that they even, you know, at the end of the second one, it's like, oh, it's little Bill and little Ted. And they even kind of explain that. And there's even a behind the scenes explanation why they swapped the genders.
Yep.
The writers have daughters, not sons.
Interesting.
Yeah. So it's like, yeah, no, it's like, it just made sense to say little Bill and little Ted. But the reality is that no, we have daughters.
It wasn't hard for me at all. It wasn't hard for me at all to make that. I mean, if if there's anyone on the internet complaining about that, just shut the fuck up.
Exactly.
I don't know if you're there, but shut the fuck up.
They're probably there, so shut the fuck up anyway. But yeah, I mean, so, like, while I will say that where the movie kind of lags a bit is when Thea and Billy are going and trying to pick up those other, because they're kind of doing the first movies
over again. Yeah.
Over again. And while that's not necessarily bad, and there were certainly some neat things in there, like when Mozart saw the lady playing the flute. It's like that was just a nice little scene where he's like, he just immediately was like, "Ooh," and like got excited about meeting this lady.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like there's nice things there, but it's like, I was here to see Bill and Ted, and what every single scene of Keanu Reeves and Alex Winter they're just killing it. They're just killing it. And like, there's some interesting other ideas too, where it kind of feels like you get to see the world around them a little bit more and the people around them a little bit more.
Right. Well, I mean, the whole world is affected at this point. So
exactly. Can we talk about Dennis Caleb McCoy for a second?
We can. To me, he is the new Death for my children's generation. Like, they were laughing hysterically. And I wanted to bring my kids up because I think this is important, because this movie came up when we were kids, or the originals. My children were laughing their asses off at the stuff I would have laughed my ass off when I was younger. Not to say Dennis Caleb McCoy was not funny, but they had the reaction that I would have when I was 12. So that's why I know this movie is a success at what it was trying to do.
Exactly.
Not that my kids are the end all be all to what's funny and what's not, but it got the desired reaction.
Yeah. The thing is with Dennis McCoy that got to me was that I love the idea of the robot that suddenly becomes self-aware.
Yes.
And then he is consistently trying to live up to this new awareness that he has.
Right.
And, and it's just like, you never tire of him. He is solely there to deliver specific lines, and I think they work. And whether or not, like, I think he is that thread that works for younger people's senses of humor.
Right.
And it's kind of like we get Bill and Ted, we get Kristen Shaw, we get Death again. So it's like we get to see those kind of we can have that comedy of the older characters, but I still really, really like the self-aware robot idea, because that's just
it's very funny.
It's
very funny.
Yeah, it just works for me. And in fact, if they ever just give Thea and Billy their own movie, and they have Dennis McCoy as their sidekick.
Oh God, that'd be funny.
I would probably check out that movie.
Yeah, why not?
Why not? Well, because here's the thing. I am perfectly okay if we never see Bill and Ted again. Yeah,
and I don't think we will.
No, and I don't. There's nothing left for them to do.
Right.
But if they decided to make, even if it was just like a cartoon of Thea and Billy and Dennis McCoy, I check out a few episodes, because
I could see that being like a 90s cartoon of those three. Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. And but like again, I want this movie to do really, really well, not because I want more Bill and Ted movies, because I don't think there's any point to that, but I would like for this to prove that we can watch more movies at home, and they'll be successful, and it'll be just fine. Everything will be just fine.
Right.
Just give us the movies at home. I'm okay with not going to the movie theater anymore.
Right.
And maybe we don't get them on the same day as they're released to the theaters, because this did get a theatrical release too. But let it have a few weeks in the theater, and then just give it to us at home.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd pay for a subscription service with studios and just watch their movies at home for a year. Yeah, I think that would actually be kind of cool.
Yeah, like if they came up with something where studios got together and they said for $30 a month you can watch Paramount and Universal and Disney and Warner Brothers, everything that they release, it comes to this service 1 month after they have a theatrical release. Absolutely, let's do it, man.
Yeah, I agree. One other thing I want to note, and this is just an interesting tidbit, and I don't know if it was purposeful, but George Carlin's daughter, or his real daughter's name is Kelly.
Yeah.
And the daughter of him in the movie's name is Kelly. I don't know if that was purposeful or not, but I think that's a nice nod to George if it is.
Yeah, if it is, yeah, that's really nice. Again, that word, it's just really nice,
and agreed.
It's it made me feel good watching it. I will say that when I saw it, and the reason why I've been thinking about the movie more since is that, unfortunately, the last half hour hit right about the same time that I found out that Chadwick Boseman died.
Oh yeah.
Which all of a sudden, it's like, so I'm kind of in shock, but I'm also like, invested in this movie, you know, and it's like it did maybe color a little bit of my initial reaction, but like I said, the more I live with, or the more I think about the movie since seeing it, the more I realize just how sweet this movie is.
Yep, and not to brush your Chadwick Boseman thing under the rug, but if we do press forward in this kind of environment where we're watching movies at home all the time, we need to learn to put our phones down. We need to learn to act like we were in the theater watching these films, and that's not a dig at you or anything, but I know that's how people like it's. You can pause these movies at home. You can go do other things, which is a nice part of it, but it can also lead to distraction in the middle of something that's supposed to be taking you out of your normal day.
Yeah, that's a good point. Because I feel like, you know, right now we're kind of as a necessity, we are in this kind of world where it's not easy to go places. It's maybe not even a good idea to go places.
Right.
So, you know, we're already at home, and if we don't unplug the way we would when we normally would, but, you know, like if we're watching a movie at home or whatever, it's awfully difficult to get the entertainment out of things. And it's, you know, I was always worried about watching stuff at home because of that ability of like pausing and whatever. But the last couple of days when I've streamed stuff, you know, what I've done, even things that I've seen before, I'm still trying to actually watch it without pausing it. So yeah, it's, you know, I mean, you're right though. I think that, but you know, I mean, hell, what difference does it make if you pay for the subscription, if you pay for a subscription service to watch movies, you know, and you just throwing money down a pit. It doesn't really matter what you're doing, I guess, at that point. But no, you do bring up a good point.
Yeah, I didn't mean to derail the conversation at all. But.
No. I mean, that's an important thing, because I think this movie, between this movie and a movie like Trolls that came out right at the beginning of the pandemic, and ended up like making a bunch of money.
Yeah.
I think it proves that there is a way to, you know,
there's a market for both. There's a market for at-home viewers, and I don't get to go to the theater as much as I'd like.
Right.
But I would watch a whole hell of a lot more movies at home for $20 with the family. I really would.
Well, you know, even if I'm thinking about it like this, you know, it's like I ended up just buying this movie for $25, right? Because I bought the other two, and it's like, you know what? I'll just have all three of them. Again, it was $5 difference between renting it and buying it.
Yep.
So, and that was even for the ultra high def, you know, which wasn't really probably all that necessary.
No.
But, you know, that's the advantage of having an ultra high def TV. I guess I can make that decision.
Yep.
But for the same price, what difference does it make anyway? But the point I'm trying to make is that, you know, if I really think about it, if this was at the movie theater, and it's like, hey, Chuck, let's go see this movie on Friday night or whatever. Hey, you want to stop at Qdoba before, have some dinner, then head over to the theater or whatever, right? Well, if we did that, I would end up spending $25 on a movie ticket and my dinner, and then plus spending money on like a drink for the movie or candy or whatever, right?
It's a $50 night or whatever.
Yeah, it could very easily become, you know, at least $25 or $30 night, just bare minimum. And so at that point, it's just the only difference is that, you know, I'm cooking my own pizza and I'm, you know, drinking my own drinks out of the fridge. Who cares what, you know?
Right.
So at that point, it's like I'm still seeing the movie I would have spent the money to go see. So I think there is a market out there. I hope this movie does well, and I hope people, they don't even have to buy it. But there's going to be some people who might rent it and then go back in a couple of weeks and just buy it.
Right. And it'll be $7 in 2 months, probably.
Probably.
Yeah.
And, you know, but there's an opportunity here for movies like this that don't require huge box office numbers, don't require the normal outlets for promotion that cost so much. that, balloon budgets to twice as much as they should be.
Right.
There's a real opportunity here to, to release some nice entertainment like this and make it somewhat reminiscent of those things from the 80s and 90s when you just rented the movie at home. You rented a movie, you went home, you watched just this nice little movie. You enjoy yourself, and you say, hey, you know what? I'm glad I watched it.
Yep. Right there with you.
And that's exactly how I feel in general about Bill and Ted Face the Music. I'm really glad I watched it. It's not perfect. It has moments that, are okay. And then there's moments that are really funny, but it's nice. It's fun. It's kind of a warm blanket in a time where, hey, you know what? It'd be nice to have some warm blankets.
Yeah. And I think, for people out there with families who haven't watched the first, you can watch this one without having seen the others and get all the information you need.
Yep. Exactly.
To watch them.
100%, because I watched the other two just because it's like I'm kind of in the mood to watch the other two, but I do realize that if I didn't, I wouldn't have it wouldn't have ruined anything for me. Right. So yeah, good on the folks who made this movie. So it's the Chris Matheson, Ed Solomon writers. I didn't know the director, who was Ed. Wait a minute, not Ed. Hang on a second. Dean Parasot. I did not. I don't either. I don't know him, but I mean he. Oh wait, I should know him. I really should know. He made Galaxy Quest. Oh, okay. That's another really nice, funny movie that is an enjoyable watch and something that's also good for kids too. Yeah, I think that makes perfect sense. Yeah, that absolutely. He directed that movie. Yep, and it really, it really kind of ties all that together now. Yep, absolutely. So yeah, I'm giving this a recommend and a definite thumbs up from me. Yeah, I agree. Watch this movie; it's fun. I second that wholeheartedly, dudes. Dudes. Be excellent to each other, everybody. Exactly. And while you're being excellent to one another, you can go ahead and head on over to filmseizure.com. Watch all go check out all of our stuff. Watch a screen and listen to us talk about something. Yeah. You can find us at like at SoundCloud, at Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, everywhere you can listen to podcast almost, right? Yeah, pretty much. If we're not on your favorite podcast place, then those people are totally not excellent. Yeah, or let us know and we can tell you to move to one we're on. Exactly. It'll be a whole lot easier for you to move to us than for us to move to you. Yeah. So come sit with us, folks. Yeah. But yeah, so this Wednesday we've got Superman the movie. Yes. Yeah, that's some good stuff there. The Monster Mondays. What do I have coming up here this week? That's the next couple of weeks, because this is. Some people may be listening to this after Wednesday, after Monday. I mean, yeah. Let's see here. Hang on a second here, everybody. I've got David Cronenberg's Shivers. Nice. And then Rebirth of Mothra next Monday. So, a couple of different things there. You got a nice little family movie with Mothra and a really grosso sex horror movie from David Cronenberg. What else should you expect from Cronenberg? I like to go the full spectrum. Yep. There's all sorts of monsters out there, buddy. Exactly. Some of them are like weirdo dudes, and some of them are just flying moths. Yep. But anyway, so until the next one of these that we do, I don't know what it's going to be, but we'll have something. There's some more movies coming down the pipe, I think, that will. Yeah, if nothing else, we just wait for them to get to the streaming side of things, and we'll just talk about them then. Yeah. But yeah, so on behalf of Mr. Charles Moore, Esquire Preston Logan. I am Geoff Arbuckle, and don't forget to save me a spot at the end of the couch.
Yeah, Billy! Dad! How you doing?
Well, you know, we're dead and we're in hell.
But how you doing?
We're good.